What would you do if you suddenly awoke and realized you were trapped in a strange and terrifying world? A world that had been stripped of its humanity, and the dead walked the earth. The city structures stood the same, but the inhabitants of them had changed, now cursed to wander the earth forever searching for flesh. What would you do if you found yourself in that situation? Would you lay down and cry? Would you crap your pants full and give up? Or would you fight? Would you take up arms and protect yourself from a cruel fate? Maybe you are trapped in this world, this nightmare, some sort of sick and twisted game of survival, and maybe there is no way out, except death. How long would you fight? How long would you survive? Spiffo was unusual. He stood 6.5 feet tall and was in most forms a human-sized raccoon. His memory was completely gone from him, and he had absolutely no idea what was going on or who he was. He had awoken all alone inside of a small trailer. Quickly, he armed himself with a kitchen knife and made his way outside into danger. Noticing a small group of the dead near a trailer next door, he quietly made his way over and was spotted by one of them. It slowly sauntered over to him. They were dumb and easy to knock down. Spiffo stomped on his groin until he stopped moving. Then one of his friends came to avenge him. He pushed her down to the ground. Standing over her, he told her that she wasn't even tough, then kicked her straight in the face. 2 more of the dead noticed him. They stood no match for him at all. He was quickly realizing just how powerful he truly was. Toying with one of them, he pushed it to the ground, then teased it with his delicious flesh. Running to opposite sides of a truck, it couldn't catch him. Then a second one heard his laughter and came to investigate, and he had to end the fun. Spiffo searched the trailer, ate a quick snack, and found a key for the truck outside. When he went back out, he spotted a woman walking by. She wasn't a zombie. He ran over to her and explained how strong and powerful of a survivor he was. Then she begged him to join his group. She told him her name was Mary, and he told her to refer to him as her supreme leader. He checked the truck, and unfortunately there was no fuel in it, so he searched the other cars in the area. Spiffo was filled with ego and wanted to show Mary his athleticism by running some stop-starts to display his excellent footwork. She was in tears at the beautiful sight. Then he resumed his search for fuel. Turning the corner of the trailer, he was ambushed by a single zombie and nearly soiled himself. Mary was watching though, so he kept his cool, and they wailed on it until it stopped moving. Luckily, there was a wrecked car with a very small amount of fuel in it. Spiffo took the gas and put it in his new truck. Then him and Mary left the trailer park. The neighborhood was infested. They were everywhere, and Spiffo barely had any fuel. Without a direction or idea of where to go or what to do, he just continued forward. It was clear that nowhere would be safe. Just then, as he was barreling down the main street of town, he came across a building with his face on it. Spiffos. It was a burger restaurant, and it looked like he was the face of the company. Finding the first familiar thing since waking up here, Spiffo knew this was where he would have to make his stand against the dead. He circled the building a few times, grouped up all the zombies, and attempted to lure them away from the restaurant, then circled back around. The plan didn't work at all. There were still zombies all over the area. It was time to fight. Spiffo slammed on the brakes, and him and Mary jumped out ready for battle. Immediately his knife broke, and a zombie almost bit him from behind, so he retreated to a safer place and continued the battle. Clearly, his ego got the better of him. 1 or 2 of them at a time was easy, but large groups were deadly. There were too many to fight, so he began rounding them all up again and led them into the trees. Then he circled back to the restaurant. Mary was gone, but the coast was mostly clear. He began cutting down anything left in the area, hoping Mary would show up safe and sound. He searched all around, but he could not find her. Then he finally saw her. She was one of them. Spiffos' heart sunk. He couldn't help but feel guilty, as it was his idea to jump out of the truck and fight. He couldn't quite bring himself to putting her down, so he sat with her for a moment in peace and worked up the nerve. Then he respectfully wiped his boot with her face. It was getting dark and the day was coming to a close. Spiffo went next door and decided to spend the night doing a bit of reading before tucking in for beddy bye-byes. Then he heard a door open and close. Immediately he readied himself. Could these things open doors? They seemed too stupid for that. He entered the next room and a person bumped right into him out of nowhere. It was another survivor. Her name was Laura, and luckily she was friendly, quickly joining Spiffo's team. She secured the windows while Spiffo slept. Then the next morning they made their way back to the restaurant. Spiffo had a plan. First he would gas up his truck. Then he would loot for weapons, supplies, and knowledge. He would recruit anyone he could find, and they would reopen Spiffo's restaurant together. They made their way over to the gas station. It was swarming with the dead. Laura was chased off and lured a good portion of them with her. Spiffo wasn't sure if she was still alive, but her sacrifice was necessary. Another man was walking by, and he asked him if he wanted to join his group. The man, of course, accepted. They gassed up the truck and made a Molotov, then went to look for Laura. She was still alive and fighting, but her seat in the truck was now filled, so she would have to make her way back on foot. When they arrived back at the restaurant, there was another survivor there. She immediately asked to join the team, and they wailed on a zombie together to celebrate the union. Spiffo ordered one to stay and guard the base, and the new survivor to follow him. They needed to go get building supplies and tools. Everywhere they went, the dead were swarming in numbers. Spiffo told the new teammate that she would have to lead them away, so that he had time to search the warehouse. She knew not to upset him. His teammates feared his prowess. She lured away all the zombies, and he was able to get inside. Spiffo successfully looted all the tools they would need from the warehouse and went to look for Elizabeth. She was surprisingly still alive. She caught up, hopped in. They took off back to base. Spiffo handed out the tools and gave everyone a task. They needed lots of lumber to build this place up with, so the team was going to cut and gather wood for him. He only needed a few more supplies, and he would be ready. The other survivors told him of a location down the road that had everything he would need. He just had to clear another 100 or so zombies first. The fire was effective, and Spiffo was able to find guns, books, and videos. Now, he was ready to work. A storm raged while Spiffo barricaded up all the windows. The team had already collected a good amount of lumber, so he sawed it all up. While he was working, he spotted one of the teammates doing something unforgivable. For some reason, Elizabeth was smashing down his barricades and even broke out one of the windows. How dare she? She was a traitor, a saboteur. She was probably mad that he used her zombie bait, but this mission was more important than her life. Now she couldn't be trusted. Spiffo finished the barricades and tucked in for the night. The next day he took Elizabeth away from the base. He told Elizabeth she was no longer welcome in the group. Then he attacked her. He was furious about her betrayal, and she was too dangerous to be left alive. She tried to fight back but was no match for him. He cut her down, then returned to his work. Spiffo spent days reading carpentry books, watching how-to videos, and sawing logs. Over and over. Building, reading, learning, fighting, recruiting more members. Day by day his group became stronger. Any survivor that refused to join his cause was cut down immediately. Spiffo took no chances with the dead or the living. This restaurant would be open again, and no one would stop him. He started a rooftop garden and collected cold storage for the produce when it is grown. He hooked up generators for power and lights. The teammates were each given a gun and a guard stand at each corner of the base. Everything was coming along beautifully. Water containers were hooked up on the roof and plumbed into the sinks and toilets in the restaurant, and traps for meat were placed in the field next door. Everything was going swimmingly. Then, while Spiffo was having some alone time in the bathroom, he heard gunshots and screams. He hightailed it outside and climbed up on top of the perimeter wall. His heart completely sank in his chest. There were hundreds of the dead, pouring out from the forest and heading straight for the restaurant. There were too many to fight or shoot. They easily broke through the fence gates and into the base. His team was lost. There was nothing he could do but watch as they were torn apart by the horde. He jumped off the wall and retreated to the roof of the restaurant. This was it. Everything had been lost and he was cornered. He fought with everything he had, but ultimately, this was the end of Spiffo. Then he woke up. It was a nightmare. Too many beers and Spiff burgers, probably. But at least everything was back to normal. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, consider hitting the thumbs up or even possibly subscribing. It would mean the world to me and Spiffo.